Table. This is Jonathan Albin, and this is Game Master Soapbox from NycosRPG. We are going to be talking about role-playing games. Of course, we're always talking about role-playing games, and I've been doing these videos for some time now, and I'm kind of surprised at the response. Pardon with the lights. We seem to have a slight imbalance one way or the other between the brilliance of the light and the required appropriate facial shadows so that I don't look like a two-dimensional object. Uh, anyway, um, when I say I want to talk about RPGs, I want to talk about every possible category, genre, niche. I'm talking about the very essence of role-playing. And I want to go back to our origins. If you are a role-play gamer, you've probably been doing it for a while. Sometimes you're brand new. I have been doing it the majority of my life. I learned how to play when I was about 11, and that was about 48, almost 49 years ago. And all this time, the game has seemed the same, and yet it is constantly changing, and it's sometimes difficult to quantify or clarify. And certainly there's not a history of the subject written out anywhere, I don't believe. And I probably should write the book. And I have written a couple. If you get a chance, so you can find my kind of life story in Your Life, Your Game, Your Move. And I also wrote a inspirational book called Top of Your Game, The Guide to Winning at Everything. And those are both available from lulu.com, and I believe they're also on Amazon. Just put in my name and the title, and you should be able to find them. I have an author page on Amazon, but I think so do a million other people in the world. So it probably is not exactly the easiest thing to search out that way. But when we're talking about role playing, if you go back to all of our childhood experiences, I would hazard a guess that almost every one of us has role played and don't even realize it. Role playing, of course, the idea of taking on a persona or a different viewpoint where we are something that we're not, or something we might be someday but we aren't, and thinking and acting as if we are that person for the sake of discussion and entertainment. That's as ubiquitous as breathing, I think. In some ways, it's part of how we all develop as human beings, because we have to consider what we might do with our lives, where we might be, and then find ways to become that in real time. I got to deal with my camera. There we go. So when we talk about role playing, when we go back to the root like that, we're talking about the very concept of what the words say: role, playing, and game. A role is a archetypical description of a position or an objective. And when we role play, we take on that persona, we take on that role, and then we play through it. And play really has to do with iteration. It has to do with constantly reimagining. And I think that's essential. That imagination, iteration is really what we're talking about. How do we put ourselves through the model over and over and over again to see how we might resolve it differently each time, and what the changes and permutations might do, not only to the condition, but also to the very role we're portraying. So sometimes our role is of a champion or a warrior. Sometimes it's of the healer and defender. It all depends on the specifics of the encounter or adventure that we are running through. And of course, the issue of game has anything to do with the arbitrary nature of it, the capricious and perhaps um, random number generated results that play with or against the role we're trying to play. And I don't know how many people will watch this video. I have a tendency for about 20 to 30 players in it. I don't know whether that's a factor of just the same 20 to 30 people, or whether that's just the only direction and distance that the audience will go for me. I know that I would love to be able to get this word out to everybody. I want everyone in the world to know that we are better because of role playing, and that we can improve our imagination and iteration, our ability to recreate and reconsider options faster through role play than perhaps any other methodology. And it is something that we internalize when we have acted the part of the hero at some point in our lives. We feel it. We recognize the experiential results. In role play games, that's measured in experience points and is a rather arbitrary number determined by the amount of armor, amount of hit points, and whatever of the opponents. And it's not in no way is it actually directly a measurement of the effectiveness of the experience. Whereas other games mechanics would give opportunities to track that better, but they just haven't been played out yet. And so when I am talking about role playing, I am talking about that experience of enjoying the role and doing the actions thereof, and learning from them. And role playing over the generations, over the years and years that it has been here, has modified and changed. And that alteration and change that we go through in reference to our lives is, I don't know. I maybe I wax too poetic, and I suppose if it came down to one line in a video, I wish there was a way for me to be able to say straight out the one thing that I want to say and have everybody hear it, because as it is, this one video on a screen of possible videos you could watch, we don't know. I don't know why you picked to watch this one. The questions I would ask would be, why this one? What is it that appealed to you? And of course, 100 different people are going to give 100 different answers. 100 different people are going to watch a different video at different times, and so there's no way to know it. And there's algorithmically determinable conditions, and I suppose they will get to the point when the AI will pick the AI responses over the humans' options, and we will cease to have our significance because we will be predictable to the point of irrelevancy, that the machine will know what we need and what we want and provide it, and we won't have any input to it anymore. We'll be in a soft and fluffy world, or we'll be in a totally dominated one where the universe knows what we can endure and provides us with only what little resistance that we have to survive, and otherwise it will just cloyingly bury us. But I don't know. I make these videos every night, and my viewership moves up and down and never moves very high. The most extensive video I ever did was a comedy bit that lasted for 300 people and then stopped. So I don't know. The mechanism for advancement is it's a science. It's no longer an art. I know that the creativity that I present in the games that I have draw people every week, and people consistently want to come back, and my audience seems to grow. And the more time I have to put into role play, the more players I have. But the reality is that the income generation from it is flat. There's no advancement, and I'm not the level of professional that a Matt Mercer is. I certainly don't have his pool of contacts, And although I do have a considerable list of people I could contact, I there's something about humanity that keeps us from doing what we need to do. And so this video is probably going to come off as listless and meandering, and no one's going to watch it either. So, I'm 10 minutes in a video, and I haven't actually talked about a single point yet of what I want to say. So, this is indicative of I don't know if I click the clapboard and start again, here 20 minutes or 10 minutes into the show, I could try some dynamic, new, exciting something or other that I think is going to draw people's attention. But I am a human being, and I can't predict that. And the process that the algorithm uses to reveal information, I don't even know which parts of it would be exciting, or challenging enough. There are people, I think, that make videos like this that scream for help all the time, and they don't get noticed or heard, and it doesn't matter. We're what we are. We are the sum of our experiences and our upbringing and our environment. And, there would be people that would label information as coming from a place of privilege, or coming from a place of economic virtue, or coming from a position of political clout. The reality is that 99.999% of us are exactly where I am right now, and that is, as Pink Floyd would say, living a life of quiet desperation, and we don't do anything about it. And I use these episodes to talk about role playing, and in this case, I'm kind of taking on a role that I don't normally live in, and that is the role of somebody who really wants to make a difference in the world and isn't succeeding. And as I play this role, it's one that I've chosen. It's not one that I've been assigned. It's I guess I'm more of a modern D&D character, and more of a modern roleplay character than an older scale one, because I'm not playing with the hand I was dealt. If I was, I'd still be in a box someplace as an electronics technician, or an air traffic controller, or a warehouseman, or name previous career paths, or not here. And I'm just trying to live. I'm just trying to be who I am, and be legitimate and genuine and truthful, and share the wonders that I have found in life, and the amazing effectiveness that I found in life. And instead, I find myself in this box with a economic shelf life, and a political net zero, and a false sense of value. The irony of having great positioning in times past has led me to perceive that I have a net value that is higher than zero. But I mean, I have, we all have a list of followers and friends that might measure in the dozens, we might measure in the hundreds, and might, as in my case, measure it in a couple thousand. But those people don't see my posts. They don't care. They're not. No one is on this world to take what you say as gospel. They're not here to even listen for what you are trying to present. And so I sometimes feel like I'm shouting in the wind, because, and I probably am, because I've got a fan going, but I hope it's not too off-putting to my broadcast, but I feel like there's a one in a trillion chance that somebody will find something that I say worth repeating, and there's a one in a billion chance that something I say might be worth watching a second time on video, and there's a one in 100,000 chance that somebody would support the show through sponsorship or some form of support package or whatever. And there's a one in 10,000 chance that somebody will back my Patreon program at a certain dollar value so they can be a part of the communication and therefore get to know who I am and learn more about this message that I have. And then there's a one in 1,000 chance that that person will spend more than 10 minutes a month doing anything about it. And there's a one in, I'm doing the math differently. There's a one in 100 chance there's somebody that's going to watch one of my videos and go, that kind of makes sense. I should look into that. And there's a one in 10 chance that you came by and you watched the video and you go, okay, there's a guy that's lost it. Poor old man thinks that the world is more sensitive and more caring and more connected than it is. And there's a 1-to-1 chance that if you're watching a video like mine, you've come here because there's something about what I'm saying that feels right to you, and you don't know how to articulate that or how to make it apply in your life, but you do know that there's something going on. Having said all of that, I'm here at almost a half an hour into the show, so there'll be a commercial break here in a minute or so. So just be aware of that. I don't have any control over that, but that's fundamentally how this show, in theory, is supposed to be helping to sustain my ability to continue to show the show. But I'm on every night of the week at 11 p.m. or so, and I stay on for somewhere between a half an hour and an hour and a half usually. And I love dialogue. I can hardly stand the monologuing that's required. And yet, I don't know, there are people that have watched through all of my videos, so I like I said, the world mystifies me. I don't when I talk about role playing, I get all philosophical because for me it's been a majority part of my life. I've been a husband and a father and a owner operator for a company, and I've been a trucker, and I've been a warehouseman and an air traffic controller and a microwave antenna installer and a cellular technician, and all these different career paths haven't put me in a place where I had any meaning. It maybe put more dollars in my pocket than the current process is doing, but that doesn't necessarily equate to greater value. I think that I'm a happier person. We talked about happiness yesterday. I think I'm a far happier person now than I was a month ago or 2 years ago or 20 years ago. But I know that part of what's going on is that I'm getting a bit philosophical as we're coming up on the I'm just completely messed that up. The worst of it was about a month ago. For this year, July 31st is the worst day of the year for me because it's the anniversary of my daughter's death. And it's been on my mind a lot lately that my entire life changed. It's like if I were to look at the operation of CERN in the framework of my life, I would assume that the discovery of the Higgs boson, or whatever, the day that they broke the universe, so to speak, at CERN, would have been July 31st, because my entire world reversed, completely went off the rails with my daughter's death, because it was the catalyst for the loss of my marriage. It was the catalyst for taking the risks that I have to get to where I've gotten. I mean, arguably, Jera's death in 1997 kind of set a path that I've been on for like 30 years. Wow. Is that right? 97 to 27. Yeah, that's 30 years. Goodness gracious. Jared would have been 38. I'm sorry. Look, the reality is that life as we are in it doesn't have to be horrible. It can be exciting and lovely and wonderful. But if we're not experiencing it, if we're not internalizing it, and we're just putting ourselves through the motions, then we're really not doing ourselves or anybody else any good. And I know it's childish to play role playing games. I would think that probably there are a lot of you that are watching this video, or if you ever see any part of this video, thinking that poor man, he's so self-absorbed that he thinks that the world is like he is. But we're all children. Every one of us is a child. We are a child of a parent. We are a child of our culture. We're a child of the world. And if we aren't playing as a child, we're suffering. I mean, when I was little, when I was a father and my son it was time for him to come inside and do his homework or whatever, that's suffering, right? Because a child would rather be playing, would be rather engaging. And I kind of have fashioned my life on that idea of I just want to always be in the playful place. I always want to be where the joy is generated. I don't want to have to do like other people do and work a job that I don't like for money I don't need to make people that don't care about me survive in a world that they would rather not endure. Sometimes I wax poetic. Sometimes I say stuff that sounds really good. And then other times I'm at a loss for words. And I know I do a show every night at 11 o'clock. How is that possible? I'm never at a loss for words. I always have something to say. And usually I'm on here with a rant. I'm just, going off on one subject or another. And today, talking about role play and my situation and the realization that Jared's been gone longer than the time that I was married and longer than the time that I lived before that it's not right. She was 9. We shouldn't have to bury our kids. This seems such a juxtaposition. I wanted to talk about playful stuff, and instead I'm losing it here. And now this, if I leave this video out to be seen, which I want because I want the message to get heard, but then I'm going to be seen as a weak, childish old man who's and I don't even think I'm old. Hell no. I'm freaking 60. 60 is the new 30, right? I've got plenty of time. I'm not worried about that. I take fairly good health care of myself. I'm not as healthy as I could be. Now I'm rambling. Yeah, this is going to be this is what people want to see. On the other hand, maybe it's a train wreck. I don't know. I've been a game master for 30 years. No, for 50 years. Chump change. And in all that time, I have never had anybody You ever had anybody role play a sad situation when things that go south in a role playing game, when there's death and loss in a game? Usually, it's the end of the session. Usually, it's the end of the campaign. If the ultimate, of course, is a TPK, total player kill, and I've had a situation where I had a total player walkout. I'll bet no other game master in the world can probably say that. That's because there are times when I try to redeem a player that's irredeemable, and I try to fix situations that can't be fixed. But I don't think I've ever played a truly sorrowful situation. So I guess I'm typifying the status of emotion. Yesterday I was on happiness, and now I'm, you know, the geysers, the dam is bursting, and tears are coming, and whatever. And yeah, it has everything to do with the passage of Jera. We're not immune to the experiences of our lives, but role play games are not about sadness. Role play games are not about difficulty or disease or any of the horrible things in life. Role play games are generally about finding resolution and the bad guys getting their comeuppance and the fairness and justice that is in the world. And at the barest minimum, it's about player advancement down a course towards victory. Those players that come to RPGs with the winner mentality come to it with the objective in mind of accomplishment, and that positive enticement is what drives players to games. If you told them, we're going to play a tragedy, if you're going to say, yeah, we're going to play a campaign where everybody is going to die, this campaign will end when every player at the table has concluded his story path, I don't think you'd get very many people to sit down to play, because we don't want that. But that leads me to the other side of the question, which is what this video really started with, is that if we're going to talk about role play games, what are we talking about? If we are role playing, if we're literally picking up a piece of paper that gives us a role and playing to that is a far different experience than one where we create a template for our own personal desires and we check mark the boxes of accomplishment until we achieve it. That, to me, they're not even inclined the same direction. They're almost at odds with one another, because if you are, as I said, picking up a persona and rolling the dice and setting a course based on the numbers you see, you're having to imagine the alignment. Whereas in the other direction, you have the alignment and you're only imagining the mechanism. And if you're imagining the mechanism and you're utilizing a rule system to do it, then it's not a matter of imagination. It's just a matter of coordinating the pieces to achieve that goal and leaving no gap in between. And when we live in an iteration imagination environment, when we are constantly having to recreate ourselves moment by moment to be able to move forward, we're utilizing a different part of our brain. We're utilizing a different process than normal, and that therefore will be evidenced by other people's perspectives and other people's opinions. I've been in the games business for 30 plus years, but I am by no means an expert at it. And I have observed both the great and the small, company-wise, make great and small errors. I've seen the great and the small make genius moves. And I've been racking my brain for the months and months that I've been doing these videos, trying to find what it is that can catapult my messaging, because I know what the message is. The message is I want everybody to play role play games differently. I want players to play differently. I want there to be a new paradigm on the block. But how do you do that? How do you cross that threshold? How do you, I mean, if you got any ideas, I'd be loving to hear them. And I know that with my perennial one visitor, bless your heart, whoever you are that's watching me, thank you for being here every day. It's nice to have a, a shadow, an echo, and awareness that at least the words that I'm saying aren't being completely lost in the void. I know that there are people that watch my videos, but there's no way to know how long they watch, how many minutes they spend, how much they uh, bypass. I don't know whether that my emotional outburst here a little bit earlier will even be seen. So I don't know. Irony is I don't want to make the video too long because if I spend too much time, I will have buried the lead, so to speak. But when we are like we are right now, when we're in a face-to-face conversation, yeah, the normal conversations don't start off with, so do you play role play games? That's just not where you start. You start with what your occupation is, and odds are most conversations won't go far enough to have you get to the opportunity where that is a point of conversation. So I think that the real message that I'm coming to is that in order for the subject to come up, we have to tell other people about ourselves, and we need to be as quick, as concise as possible. So I don't know. Now I feel like I'm back on the rambling track, and I no longer have uh, the kernel of emotional stuff that I need to get out like I did a minute ago. So I'm kind of bereft. And we did make it through our first commercial break, but we're coming up on our second one, and I don't want to hold you past that. I think I'm going to go ahead and end the show now. If there is something you'd like to ask or say, feel free to put a post here. If not, check out our videos over on YouTube at NycosRPG. That's where these all end up residing for the most part. If you like what you see, go ahead and follow the channel. If you don't like what you see, thank you for the time that you spent with us, and I hope to see you at the next video. We're on 11 o'clock p.m. every night here on Nycos.